Sure.
Oh, I don't have a
Recording
thing. Oh well.
progress. Beep, beep. Toot, 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 toot.
Yeah, we straight chillin', serial killin', pre-cold villains on the mic, got you reelin'. 5-star rated from the floor to the ceiling. If you catch a 1-star, no time for feelings. Got a demon DJ on the ones and twos, by the name Elzebub, so don't get confused. So grab a seat by the fire, roast a mallow or two, and prepare to hear the legend of the straight chillin' crew.
What up, nerds? And welcome to another neutral episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name is Bob. I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode 471, recorded Sunday, April 14th, 2024. Tonight we're talking about the latest and greatest from Alex Garland. The movie is Civil War. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show. First up, calling in from the front lines, we got your boy Randeezy. What's up, man?
How's it going, buddy? It's good to hear from you. I'm glad to be able to still broadcast from this war zone that I'm living in. Yeah. How's it going?
The ever reliable, ever so neutral reporter Randeezy in the field.
I'm one of those Americans you hear about. You know the ones.
The reliable kind. You're
The
always
ones that
there.
you like.
We all like. Last but not least, calling in from Seoul, South Korea, we got your boy Soju. What's up, man?
Oh, what up? It's your boy Rebel Stains calling from the Florida Georgia line with the Rebel, yeah.
Go Gator.
Go Gator, Gator Bay.
Gator Bay.
Boys, I was wondering if Florida broke away, what would like our, you got the Statue of Liberty for America. What would the Florida?
Oh my God.
It's
I
just
think they've already got it. It's on iDrive in Orlando, and it's just a big fucking eagle over a terrible gift shop.
I think it'd just be water because the state is sinking. That's
yes.
it. It's a bunch of water. Well, if we can succeed for a moment, and then that's it.
Oh no. Oh no. What's happening? Oh no.
This collection of islands, Florida.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Connected
It
by
just
a
becomes more
low-lying
islands.
bridge.
Yeah. There's already a lot. It just becomes more.
I bridge.
Oh, boys. Before we get into the movie review, let's tackle a little bit of housekeeping real quick. Here's another reminder. Our May poll is currently posted on our Patreon website. If you guys support us at the $5 level or above, you get a chance to vote on a movie we're talking about this May. And this is Justin's Takeover Month. What's the theme and what are the movies, Juice? We're voting on.
Oh, the theme is Korean Creature Comforts. Creature Comforts is our spin-off show where we do horror adjacent film reviews on YouTube. So I picked 3 Korean films from 3 big Korean directors that are dark and have horror elements, but not necessarily horror straight up. They are Memories of Murder, The Handmaiden, and Burning. And they all came out with, oh no, Memories of Murder is much older than that. Never mind. So they're still pretty recent, within the past 20 years. So yeah, how those numbers looking, Bob?
Memories of Murder came up just a little bit. It's at 71% now. Second place
Came up just
is
a little bit.
A little bit, just a little bit. Burning is in second place with 24% of the vote, and The Handmaiden is at 6%.
Damn. Memories of Murder, stomping dong.
Stomping your dog.
That sounds about right.
Well, cool.
71%. That's Dom stomping territory.
Dom.
It is.
Dom
Don't
America runs on dong stomping.
Not Bob's Dom.
Bob gets his Dom stomp every night.
I like
Don't
that
do
guy.
Don't stomp Bob's Dom. Don't do it.
This is
that's our
completely
next
devolving to not English anymore.
That's our next straight chillin' shirt right there.
Stomping dong for America.
Get those votes in before the end of this month. We'll see what we're talking about this May. In other Patreon news, we're dropping mini casts every other Friday. This past Friday, we just dropped a brand new mini cast. Your boy Randeezy was talking about that new hotness, Lisa Frankenstein.
Oh yes.
Top 10 contender, Brandy? Perhaps.
I mean, honestly, it's a pretty stacked year. I will not reveal
Yeah.
that card just yet, but
Okay.
yeah, it's a movie that I have spoken about on record, and you can listen to that record. That's all I'm willing to say.
Truth. That's all we deliver here at Straight Chilling. The reliable Randeezy coming in with the truth.
Participate in commerce with us.
In the most neutral of ways.
And
Please
for $15,
participate.
you can see my sweet, sweet toesies.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay.
It's all for sale.
Oh, wait, like you don't even get the whole foot, it's just the toes?
That's
like you gotta pay
cheap,
more
dog.
for the
Hey,
foot.
man,
Is that
if you tip,
cheap?
you keep tipping on top, you never know what you're gonna see.
Damn it. Inflation truly is a motherfucker. Check out Randeezy's thoughts on Lisa Frankenstein. We'll have a new minicast dropping here in about a week and a half. It'll be something really cool. I don't know which one I'm going to put out yet, so we'll see.
Oh.
It'll be
Um,
so cool.
but
It's gonna be
it will
so
be
cool.
It'll be so fucking cool. You don't even know.
It'll be cooler than Pongs.
So
Pongs?
So
Multiple
right.
Pong? Oh, boys. Big thanks to everybody that hung out this past Friday for Joe Bob. He's doing this single movie every other Friday, and he had a comfort food / comfort movie theme going on this past Friday. Yeah, he was ranting about how to make the best grilled cheese sandwich, and he showed the original Toxic Avenger, which is a movie that I really honestly don't care for, but it was a lot of fun watching in the context of Joe Bob with the Slack Squad hanging out on Zoom. It was like kind of the perfect situation to watch that movie in. So it was a lot of fun, actually. Thanks to everybody that did show up for that. Also, have you guys ever made a grilled cheese sandwich with spicy mustard on it?
No.
Me
I don't-
neither.
I don't know that I have, but I've definitely made it with like the mayo variety. Did he do that shit?
No, he did talk about like subbing mayo for butter. You know, when you're like
Right.
putting the bread on the skillet or whatever.
It's a good
But-
alt.
Yeah, that makes sense. But like he open faced when he was grilling it, put like a thick slab of mustard and then closed it and then
A
finished.
thick slab?
I
Yeah,
like
I could
see some
mustard,
dollop.
but I don't want
Yeah.
it.
I could
it's-
totally see it like as a little like a little thin, like just a little something I could see, like
Yeah.
amping up some of the like cheddar or something, but
Yeah.
no, I don't need a thick slab of mustard on that shit.
Yeah, it was I'm not against it, but it seemed not
I'm
the
against it.
definitive. Not the definitive way to make a grilled cheese sandwich, and that's like what he was really pitching was like this is the definitive way.
That's
Wonder
it.
Bread, the
I'm
Kraft
done.
singles.
I'm done
Speaking
with
of
Joe
civil
Bob.
wars, that's gonna rip this
Oh.
country apart.
Now you're done.
Now
This
he's
is-
crossed the line.
He's finally done it. He's finally done it.
I'm canceling his
Mustard.
ass.
You've hurt this fucking country in a way that it can't be fixed, Joe Bob. You've done it. God damn you.
Mustard on the grilled cheese. Anyway, yeah, everybody that hung out this past Friday, big thanks. A lot of fun. We're going to be dropping an Overlook Film Festival recap episode this coming Friday. So keep your eyes peeled for that. It's going to be dropping the 19th, Friday the 19th.
It's gonna be
we're
so
talking about
cool.
like 15 different movies. It's going to be a lot of shit. It's going to be the coolest shit you've ever heard in your life.
It's gonna
Check
be
it out.
rad, bro.
Super
Are
rad.
you ready for this shit? No,
You're not.
You're
I don't think
not.
you are. I think you're ready for this jelly. Last thing I want to plug real quick. At the time of you listening to this episode, your boy Mikey and myself over at Let's Get Physical Media will have just put out our March pickups episode. So if you guys are interested in collecting Blu-rays, 4Ks, DVDs, anything like that, check out Let's Get Physical Media everywhere you get your podcasts. It was a pretty stacked episode. We had a lot to talk about, actually. It was a lot of fun. So check that out.
Nice.
Nice.
That's what I got. Do you guys have anything you want to plug?
Not today. I think
My house
my
is
plugging is
clean.
done. Yeah.
Squeaky.
Mob, is there anything else? Okay.
This house is clean.
Sometimes Bob just likes to sneak in past the wire. And then, I got 3 more things to mention.
And there's a couple more things I gotta. I bought 69 Blu-rays. Let me tell you about them.
Each one.
No, but yes, but no. Let's get into the main event. We're talking about Civil War, and we're kicking it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
Bob, you think you're gonna leave this box at the store?
I might, dude, to be honest. I don't think I want to watch it again.
Yeah. All right.
But we'll get into it.
But
Yeah, we're
you
talking
gotta
some-
own it, though. I mean,
I have to own at least 4 copies that I'll never watch.
You gotta sit it next to the Banger Men, you know.
I
By Alex
never did. I never did buy that.
Oh
either.
no!
It's-
Okay, wow,
No.
Bob, showing some restraint.
I am full of
Very
restraint.
selective restraint.
The Alex Garland collection's not going to be complete. Can you live with that?
Yes,
Okay.
I think I can. We're talking Civil War, brand new release, rated R, with a runtime of 1 hour and 49 minutes. This was written and directed by your boy Alex Garland. It stars Nick Offerman, Kirsten Dunst, Wagner Moura, Jesse Plemons, a whole host of other folks. We'll get to
Hashtag
Plemons.
Team Todd, baby. Here we go.
That motherfucker.
That man's got a typecast situation going.
And he kills it every time.
He
God.
does. He literally and figuratively, yes.
He does. Plot synopsis brought to you by IMDb is as follows. A journey across a dystopian future America, following a team of military-embedded journalists as they race against time to reach D.C. before rebel factions descend upon the White House. First time watch, obviously, it's a brand new movie. Joe Mangs, would you recommend folks check this movie out? Randeezy, why don't you kick us off?
I would recommend that those stout of heart who are not as that aren't black pilled by the current state of things to any real amount. It's let me rephrase that because that was dog shit.
You're talking in code, my guy.
What?
I'm talking in
What are you
code here.
saying?
I do recommend this, but you really got to be like ready to face down the demons of our country a little bit. Not as much as I kind of thought based on the premise or based on the trailers and everything else. But yeah, this is a little bit of a heavy movie. I think it kind of it tries not to pull very many punches with its subject matter. So I don't know, devoted to realism. If you're prepared for any of those things or all those things, then you're probably in a good place, and I would recommend it to you. So yes, I guess.
Juice, what kind of convoluted metaphor are you going to choose?
Nothing, Bob. I'm gonna streak. I'm gonna speak straight.
You are gonna streak.
I'm gonna streak straight. That's a metaphor. So I would not particularly recommend this. I don't think this is like a necessary theater watch. I think this is not up to the quality that I would have, I guess, maybe come to expect from Alex Garland. So not to say it's like the worst film ever or that there's nothing good about it. It might be worth a watch on streaming when it comes out if you're, not drowning in the political climate already. But I mean, in an election year in America, but yeah, I don't see a need for you or anyone to run out to the theater to watch this. I don't think it warrants that. Bob, would you recommend people check this out?
I would actually. I think we were all like really waving that Alex Garland flag pretty hard before Men, and then when that movie came out, we were all like pretty down on it. I think if memory serves, and I think this is definitely a step up from Men. It is also very like blunt and on the nose in a way that Men was, but I think this movie is served much better by that in a way that Men was not. So yeah, I think this movie is definitely worth checking out if you have the stomach for something that's very brutal and potentially plausible. It's not easy watching, but I do recommend checking it out in the theater, actually, specifically in the theater, because the fucking sound design is amazing in this movie, actually. So yeah, I would recommend this one. So yeah, we're a little all over the board, I guess. Give it a medium recommend, I guess.
Medium's
Average
fine.
it out. Yeah,
Yeah.
medium. Okay. All right, we are going to be spoiling the shit out of this brand new movie, and here comes your warning.
Spoiler warning.
Bob, I gotta ask you, since this is a brand new film, do you now watch like brand new films with the plot synopsis in mind? It's like, oh God, I gotta remember this stuff.
No, I don't. And thank God I don't, actually.
Yeah.
I'm scared now that you've asked that question that I'll
You
start
will.
doing that.
What am I gonna type once this is over?
No, yeah, that's a future Bob problem. I just,
All right.
sometimes it's really easy to just do off the dome. Sometimes I need a reference for sure. This synopsis actually is not that involved.
Nah,
No,
yeah.
I don't think so.
Honestly.
Well, in the
Um,
future, the AI can just do it for you, Bob. So no worries.
Oh my God. In the
The
future,
future's
none of us will
now.
actually be here recording this because it'll be
It's-
happening in absentia.
They
it's
can even
true.
make a behind the scenes.
They
They'll
can.
make a fresh
have
documentary.
5 arms and 35 fingers, but
Yeah,
it'll be there.
69 dicks.
Whoa.
Yeah,
finally.
here he goes. Here goes the
Science is
old-
catching up with us.
Here goes the
Bob, give me
plot
that plot
synopsis.
synopsis.
Here you go.
Yeah.
In the near future, a civil war has broken out in the United States between the U.S. government, led by a third-term president, and various secessionist movements. The movie begins with the president addressing the nation, saying victory is very close at hand. We then find our lead character, Lee Smith, and her journalist partner, Joel, in New York City, covering civil disorder, which is punctuated by a suicide bombing. They soon meet young, aspiring war photographer Jesse, who idolizes Lee. And that night, Lee and Joel have several drinks with mentor Sammy, and they disclose plans to head to Washington, D.C. to interview the president before the 4th of July. They agree to give Sammy a ride to the front line in Charleston, Virginia, along the way. The next morning, Lee finds that Joel has also agreed to let the young Jesse tag along. After they leave the city, they stop for gas and negotiate for supplies. Jesse walks over to a car wash and finds 2 men are being tortured by the gas station owners for allegedly looting. Lee diffuses the situation by offering to take a picture of one of the owners with the bloodied victims. After a brief overnight stop, the squad photographs some militiamen assaulting a building held by some loyalists. Jesse gets her first experience photographing combat in first person. They stop and stay the night at a refuge camp. And the following morning, they roll into a town that looks completely normal. They go shopping and try on some clothes, but Sammy spies snipers on the tops of all the roofs, and they're just keeping a watchful eye over the town. They continue their journey and get pinned down by a sniper in a remote house. Joel asks one of the guys in the sniper fight which side he's on and who he's fighting against, and the soldiers mock his questions. While traveling along the highway, another car speeds up next to them, and it's Joel's friends Tony and Bohai. They are 2 Hong Kong reporters. After some very dangerous car hopping, Tony climbs into Lee and Joel's car, and Jesse climbs over into Bohai's car. Bohai then speeds off into the distance on the Lee side of the vehicle. Lee eventually comes across the car, and the doors are open with nobody in sight. They turn down a dirt road and see Jesse and Bohai kneeling next to a mass grave as a dump truck dumps several corpses into it. There are also a few soldiers standing around with some automatic weapons. Despite Sammy's pleas, Lee, Joel, and Tony walk over to try and save their friends. The militia leader demands to know everybody's nationality and executes Tony and Bohai for not being American. Sammy saves the others by running over the militiamen with their truck. As they drive off, shots are fired and Sammy is hit. They have to stop the car and Joel takes over driving. Sammy does eventually die in the backseat as he bleeds out. The next day, they find Western Forces' primary operating base. Some embedded reporters tell them the majority of the loyalists have surrendered, excluding a few fanatical remnants of the armed forces and Secret Service. Joel is very upset by this news, as they now won't be able to interview the president, and Sammy's death is largely for nothing. The group join the Western forces as they lay siege to the White House. They break down the barricade and enter. It seems largely abandoned. A small group of soldiers begin clearing the rooms, and they find the remaining fanatical Secret Service agents. In the midst of the firefight, Lee saves Jesse's life by sacrificing herself. Jesse takes pictures as she is shot and falls to the ground. Joel and Jesse follow the soldiers into the Oval Office, and before the president is executed, Joel asks for a statement. The president replies, "Please don't let them kill me," and the soldiers then execute him. Jesse takes a lot of pictures, and roll those very grim credits. There you go, boys.
Gentlemen, this is Democracy Manifest.
So yeah,
Yes.
what a movie.
Randy, you were saying that you thought this film didn't pull any punches, and I thought it pulled a lot of punches. And actually, I found this movie, the way that it was written and the way it navigated this theme, to be very stiff and not what I thought it was gonna be. It felt like this puzzle version of Civil War, or like this very tamed, I don't know, like very, I don't, just like kind of basic look. It felt like it hit just the most basic plot beats of what you think a movie called Civil War would be, and didn't go deeper into anything that really mattered.
Like what? I'm not.
Just like
Like the specific politics?
not necessarily the specific politics,
that-
but
I'm
just so there is a positive that I'm going to highlight about the way that this movie's structured. But in talking about this, it just felt like they stop in this town, and it's all really to just get this one line of, "Yeah, we just try to stay out of that." And it feels like everything is like this tagline where I'm going to have this section of the movie, and they do a very similar thing where they stop and there's a sniper with the Christmas decorations and the sniper. It seems like they have these scenes just for this one character to deliver these very basic kind of lines or ideas, and then kind of like move on. I feel like those ideas are never wrestled with or explored by the characters that are in this film. They just encounter people who give them a point of view, and then they move on to the next section where they're going to get some new little like basic tagline.
So I see what you're saying, and like I don't know, like I see more like what Rob's saying, like that it doesn't go into like specific political positions of anything, and you could point to that as pulling punches. But I think that what you just described is like little vignettes describing the situation, and you're experiencing it in an outwardly stated neutral point of view, but it can't truly be neutral, and that like all that neutrality and experiencing all this shit takes a toll on our characters and takes a toll on everybody, and that to me is that's the real punch of it all, is like the sequence of just not necessarily even in like this story, but just like the environment that they exist in, and that you go and you see like, holy shit, there's pockets of like nothing going on. Like this is, to me, above all, like, and very bluntly, it feels like this is a movie that is like, it could happen here, and not only that, but it will happen here. Like at some point or another, there will be some variety, some version of this, and it's pointing out like different positions and interacting with different people, like a journalist would, as it lays the full groundwork of what like is happening here. And it doesn't go like completely all out. That's true, because it still is also a road movie, so it like constrains that a little bit, and the fog of war is heavily involved here. Like I think that's all very appropriate. Like I don't know that it, to me, like when to answer your question, when I was talking about like it doesn't pull punches, I think I was mostly talking about like the brutality and like the devotion to realism of like how these things impact individuals and like different people and different pockets or whatever. I think that's where the realism comes in. Is there's not like, I think that there are some like pretty powerful lines, but they're powerful lines that exist in a context that makes sense. Like, so I don't know. To me, it's
Yeah.
not, it doesn't feel false to me for like that the sniper, for example, to say like, I don't care who's in that house, they're trying to kill me, I'm going to kill
Yeah.
them. And
Mhm.
like making a blunt statement about that. Now you could argue that this movie is overly blunt, and I think that Rob, you were pointing at that a little bit, and I
Yeah.
think that's a fair criticism you can make for this movie. But I also tend to agree with, I think, what you were getting at further, which is that it is kind of appropriate for a movie that is ultimately a warning. Like,
Yeah, this is first and foremost an anti-war slash just blatant warning of a path America could be and maybe is going down. And not even necessarily just America, just the world, honestly. It's not just an American problem. But I think to get back to like the point you were making, Juice, I don't particularly like road movies most of the time because it does often feel like a series of little vignettes, which may or may not add up to an interesting or compelling story. But I do think in this situation, it works because that would be what I would assume. Like if we were going to have a second civil war in this country, that's kind of what it would end up being. It's just like countless little horrific moments all across the nation, and they would all be different, look different, feel different, and we just get sort of like little snippets as the press drives from town to town. And I kind of like how they all look and feel different, even if I get the punchline criticism that you're getting at. It makes sense, but I kind of like that we're getting brief snippets of like brutality in different ways in this movie.
Now,
It works for me. Yeah.
I did like that. So I'm in this weird point because I actually thought it was a smart choice. I really liked the choice to present it from the press standpoint. And I think you
Mhm.
get good little variations even within the press of the guy who's kind of like this adrenaline junkie in a way. And he's like, I'm getting fucking hard with these people shooting over here and stuff like that. And so, in that way, there is a little bit of emotional resonance, I guess. But I guess the problem, I like what I do like about the press aspect and from the perspective of these people are just trying to document it is you show up to this gas station, there's people being tortured, and it's seemingly, except from the young, naive person, nobody has any conflict of just being like, we're going to drive away, and there's people hanging up, and they're probably going to be executed, and there's nothing you can do about it. There's no interference we're going to try to do or anything, it's just, that's
you
what we
have to
do.
stay objective. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I like that. I like that perspective of it. But what it kind of robs this movie of, so the youngest member, what's her name?
Jesse.
Jessie.
Yeah.
She has the moments where she vomits, where she gets sick, where she's scared. But outside of that, this thing where it almost then lacks any kind of emotional resonance. And so I don't feel embedded in it.
Mm.
Like I said, I feel like I'm watching this movie from above and not
Mm.
in it.
Hmm.
It's
Mm.
almost like watching somebody on YouTube play a video game versus like playing the video game myself or something. It feels more static. Like I don't know. To me, as I'm like going through this, even a lot of the dialogue to me, and some of it makes sense why it would feel this way because of the objective nature of the main characters, but some of it just felt like not like people talking. It felt like taglines and messages, and not
Well,
even that I cared that the message is blunt. It just didn't feel authentic to me.
that's interesting because, like, I mean, I definitely felt like the performances, like, even setting aside what their like the exact lines are, I think the performances are incredible. Kirsten Dunst kind of like blew my mind that she could like pull off something like this. I have not seen her try something like this myself. So like, I don't know. I thought those were great, but as far as like the punchiness of the dialogue, I think that's fair to say that there are some punchy moments of dialogue. I think that again speaks to like the press point of view, and also like the fact that they are like writers and journalists who would be punchy and would jump for that like
Yeah.
line that leads, and so like a lot of the dialogue that's happening is by people who are, you know, that use language to make a strong point, so they would make those kinds of statements. I don't think that, like, I think that there are other characters in this movie that do that too, like, for example, the sniper I mentioned earlier, but that's a person fighting for his life who's telling somebody in short order to shut the fuck up. I'm busy right now. I don't know. So, like, to me, I can kind of see that, but like I also, like, just in general, the vignette level of this movie, it feels like a survey, not an in-depth exploration of every individual's role in this. The only individuals that we are exploring in depth are the press that we're following. And what we do get a personal story for them. We basically see Kirsten Dunst grapple with her younger self and then be usurped by it. And like, I don't know. There's clearly something personal happening there, and she's clearly like a war ragged person at the beginning and all the way through this film, struggling to maintain anything that resembles like humanity beyond survival or hope or anything like that. And she's got this young buck who goes from like frightened and being carried around by Joel, right? To the reverse happening, where Kirsten Dunst is being like carted around by Joel, and she's the one jumping out in the front lines and getting the shots, and it gets her older self killed. I don't know, man. So I think like the center point of view characters, they get the service that they need to have an arc, but I don't think that we have time to go into like, this isn't a Ken Burns documentary. It's only an hour and a half movie or 2 hour movie. So
I think the summation of the parts really drive home the point in a way that make all the vignettes worthwhile and like connect. So like if each individual part maybe feels a bit hollow, I think at the end of the movie you're really left with like this like, you know, this broad overview of the horrific nature of war, the fruitlessness of war, the meaninglessness of war. Like our main character dies in such an unceremonious way at the very end of the movie, to where like they literally barely look back at her corpse because they have to go get the shot, you know, and get the meaningless quote, which is basically nothing. And who knows if anything will get better or change, you know, at the end of the movie. It's just like such a stark way to end the movie that like really hits in a way that I think it was intended. And I don't know. I think if you add everything up together, this movie like really nails exactly what it wants to do.
I think this. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Go.
I was gonna say, like, there are a few like other anti-war movies that I was thinking about in terms of when I was after watching this and just like kind of like rolling them around in my head to see how they compare and contrast. And like the one that weirdly resonated with this one for me was Threads, which we reviewed some episodes back. Which took a proposedly objective point of view. It stripped out like even the Kirsten Dunst's character. There's no character arcs for the most part, or at least they're very well buried underneath. Here's the sequence of events that could happen. This is why it's scary. You should be afraid of this happening. And that's ultimately what this movie has, but also with a little bit of personality and heart to string you through all of that a little bit more, and a little bit less, slightly less objective, but still like leaning towards objectivity as much as possible, but also acknowledging that there's no true objectivity in war. Like at a certain point, you have an opinion about the people being strung up in front of you. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, I guess that's what's weird about this movie. And even though I like the perspective of putting it like the main point of view through the press, but when I think of anti-war movies, I think of like huge emotional resonance of putting the humanity back in, because I think that's what a lot of the big criticisms of anti-war movies are, is like, you're not seeing this from the perspective of that's another human being. They have a family and they come, they're scared. Some old man at the top is making them do some crazy decisions, getting caught up in like some fervor or some ideologies or something like that. But, you know, it becomes this sequence of events that like sucks all the humanity out of everything. And only then at the end do you look back and say our brothers and, you know, our families are dead and things like that. And so, you know, when I think of like Grave of the Fireflies or, you know, Saving Private Ryan, even Threads, even though there's not a main character in Threads and it does do it more of like a sequence of events, you see a husband and wife, get radiation poisoned together and essentially like die in each other's arms, not being able to help each other in any kind of way. And there's
Yeah.
not really anything in this movie that has some kind of emotional this feels like a Dare movie. Like this is
I
like
would disagree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
really
Go ahead,
like
Bob.
I thought when the guy died in the back of the van, it was like it was just like he's dead. There's no
Man, I really disagree with
No,
that.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was insanely emotionally resonant. He's Sammy, the older reporter who like saves everybody. And so even before that moment, like Jesse falling into the mass grave and having to crawl out is like extremely emotional. He swoops in, saves them, but gets shot in the process. And when they're driving through the woods that's burning down around them in the middle of the night, it's like such an extreme juxtaposition of like this insanely sad moment because you're watching Sammy like bleed out, like
Last
surrounded
visuals is
yeah
the
these
burning
like
of the
this
country, essentially.
yeah the burning of the country, which is like presented in this like slow motion, like gorgeous
Yeah.
way, but it's like if you like take a step back and remember that like literally the world is burning down around them and they're driving through it at as fast as they can because they might not make it out alive. It's like it's like this like 3 or 4 layered moment scene that like really hits home for me. I thought that was one of the best moments of the movie, actually.
I agree with that. And like to me, it's like, Threads is like devoted to the idea of like it being a faux documentary and like truly taking a disconnected point of view towards things, even though we do see some characters, have a little bit of like, I don't know anything about that couple besides the fact that they died of radiation poisoning. I don't know anything about like a lot of these characters in that movie, and it doesn't really matter. They're stand-ins for other people. And this movie has some of that. The town that's like a pocket of nothing going on, that's putting their heads in the sand. The guys that are like trapped in an immoving war zone situation at the Christmas lights, the Christmas thing.
Yeah.
Like these are different like ways that people are experiencing this stuff. So, but we're getting like just a taste of what's going on because we have this one main thrust, and within that thrust, we have Sammy dying, which hit me pretty good. And I don't think I was quite as emotional as Bob you were. I thought that like that Kirsten Dunst getting shot and like that her protege taking photos of her falling, that was incredible. Like I just thought that was really resonant. And watching the president beg for his life even, and then get like a cheesy fucking smiley ass photo over his corpse, like I don't know, like it's both objective and not. And I think this movie is a lot about like us being disconnected and therefore like factionalizing against each other. But even within that, trying to remain objective and trying to act like, okay, well, I've in order to be objective, I have to respect all points of view, even the guy stringing up his neighbors. Like, I don't know. I think that the reality of it is emotional enough, even on its own in disconnected way, but it connects when it matters to me.
Yeah, I guess like the way I see this is like there's no nuance necessarily in anything. This feels like a really well-produced Dare movie that's like drugs are bad versus going and watching The Wire, which is like, well, where do these people come from and why do they push these drugs and how they do it and what is like and you come to love and weep for drug dealers and murderers and things like that. This movie had none of that for me. It felt like those moments and those taglines and like, see, this is bad, or this is why it happens this way, or and we're just over here living our lives, and it just felt like these almost like political taglines put into vignette form, and they're like, I did not feel the emotional resonance with this film.
See, I just think you're talking about a different kind of depiction, like in general, like it's just a different thing. Go ahead, Bob.
I think there's a very cynical, dangerous kind of flippantness that this movie is sort of like highlighting in a lot of these like vignettes. So like when we see the soldiers that are like pinned down by a sniper, and they just like they have literally no time to answer any of the questions that would clarify the situation they're in. They're just like, this is my fucking life. This is what's happening. Get the fuck out of my way. When we see Jesse Plemons filling a mass grave, he's wearing these rose-colored glasses, which like lends this sort of like insane nonchalant kind of like whatever the fuck like nature to like this insanely nasty horrific thing that's happening that he's doing. His hands are covered in blood and he's wearing these like rose-colored glasses. It's just like these people are doing all these like really horrific things and like they don't think much of them. And I feel like that's so true to life, unfortunately. And I think that's really important to highlight in this movie. And that might kind of be sucking some of the grounded, like heartfelt stuff out of these vignettes. And maybe that's a negative for you, Juice. But I feel like that sort of flippant nature of these characters, even after they like execute the president and they're like basically taking selfies with his corpse, like that's just so fucking true to life. And it's so horrific.
You know,
and I think it's important to include that in the movie.
I think so too. I think like I also thought about the movie Zone of Interest, which was nominated for an Oscar this year. Did either of you guys see that?
I have
Not yet, no.
Okay. Well, you've seen the trailer, I'm thinking. Probably. Like you have a general idea of the premise, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so like that movie is all about the banality of evil and everything is presented very objectively. I don't believe, if my memory serves, you see maybe any on-screen violence. Everything is in the background, and that's kind of the point. It's the banality of evil. So this movie is kind of straddling the line where it's showing these people like fucking Team Todd over here like dispassionately executing his fucking brothers like from like and anybody who's not from an American state of some kind. And then you also have these characters who are trying to stay dispassionate and disconnected because they need that objectivity to perform the functions of their job. But they can't really do that because they love each other, if nothing else. And of course, they have skin in the game. We all do in that scenario. So it's like, to me, it's not The Wire because it's not going into the politics of things. It can't. And I think we would be completely overrun and bogged down if we got into the politics of which states seceded, which states and why. Like, I think that's interesting in theory as like, but this movie doesn't have the time frame to support that. The general idea is that whatever form the end of this country takes, it will happen. And it happens in large part because people don't care enough to pay attention. And that's their whole job, is to make people care, even though they have to choose not to care themselves in the moment. So I don't know. I think this movie is a kind of a warning, and it's also like it props up the idea of how important journalism is, especially in wartime, and how people will happily indulge their worst instincts if they are rabble roused just enough. And like we're seeing the aftermath of that. These frogs are completely boiled. We aren't seeing the boiling, we're seeing the fucking cooked ass frogs in this movie. So to me, it's a tough line to walk, and I could see like getting caught up in one direction or the other, thinking like, well, it's not quite as focused on like Grave of the Fireflies making me weep, and nor is it as focused on giving me a strict sequence of events. It's doing both, and I think that's very fucking hard and admirable to try and pull off.
Yeah, I don't think it's not admirable to try. I just don't think this movie was fully successful. But to be fair, though, I'm definitely on the like negative end, but I do, where this movie did have a resonance for me, you guys know, like me in general, but the opening scene where people explode and Jessie is getting her first look at Lee, and like, I need to like document this. Like, I feel that. I felt, and I liked that movie had this perspective, and I liked that we did get the variation where we get a little bit of kind of like flashbacks with Lee and like what she's dealt with and stuff like that. And I do like that we have the variation of like the older, wiser man and kind of like leading her along and like how to approach this idea of documentation and objectivity, and this other guy who's like fucking buck wild about it and just like craving for it and stuff. Even though I felt he was a little too cheesy, like I felt like he was a little too distilled in that role, in like his actions and his lines and like things like that. But I did like that because I kind of had that need to like document things or like to capture things in that way. And so it was cool to me to be like, You know, where other movies would be like, no, like we have to save these people or we have to get them out of here. And it's just like, let me take your picture or whatever. Like
Yeah.
that I
They have to
like.
put their humanity on the shelf.
I did like that. I did like that.
It's kind
I
of the
think-
cost of that too.
I think we
I'm
got to
sorry,
give
Bob.
Garland, like, I think he deserves a lot of credit here. I can't imagine in today's political climate making a movie called Civil War about a second Civil War and
Yeah,
it being even remotely successful. Like, hats off to him. I also think it's extremely like necessary that he keeps the politics extremely vague. It's very smart that he chose to do that. It's not really about the politics. It's about like the horrors of war and like, yeah, you know, highlighting
Well-
this terrible path that we could go down potentially. And like, I think if he were to have more like specific political points in this movie, the overall point of the movie would be lost, and it would just fall into this sort of like day-to-day finger pointing nonsense that we're
I've-
already like dealing with.
I feel
Yeah.
a little conflicted about that, and I feel
Do
that
you?
that's where some of the punches were pulled because it's kind of like you want to have your cake and eat it too. I want to comment on the state of things, but I don't really want to say why it's like. So one of the things that I saw as a to me, it just stood as this very calculated yet nonsensical choice to specifically do that. It felt like strategy to me to be like, the California and Texas alliance or whatever. And I was like, they're not close, they're not touching, they're
I have
not
a theory
Lambo.
about that.
Well,
But
I think that just like from the get-go lets you know like, hey, this is fictional. Like, we're not getting into the politics.
but it's just
Yeah.
like it felt like a calculated choice to be like, let me pick the biggest red and the biggest blue to show that I'm not
Yeah.
playing sides here, guys. It's
Well-
California and Texas. It feels like he wants to like really, really, really comment on things, but also throw his hands up and be like, don't
no, 'cause-
point the finger at me.
I don't think what it wants to comment on is the efficacy of right politics versus left politics. I think what it wants
Yeah.
to comment on is the careening of the country towards a flashpoint of some kind. And
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter what form that takes. Like, this isn't The Wire. This also isn't like I've mentioned Paths of Glory in the past. That's a movie about World War I that is like entirely about the corrupting force of attaining power within the military and the way it fucks people over. People die under the boot in service of somebody's career. That's like David Simon and The Wire like formed The Wire kind of after that movie in some ways. I think I saw an interview with him about this. And so like I don't think that adding that layer to this movie helps the overall point. The point being that we are in one form or another, if we don't keep our heads and we don't like remain somewhat compassionate towards each other and thinking about stuff and not like secluding ourselves from it, then we could reach a point like this sooner than we could possibly imagine. I think that's the point. So like bringing in like, well, you know, the Reagan party popped up and they killed all the Antifa and like that doesn't matter. Like, it's set dressing to me. Like, there's other movies.
I guess just
for
like things that
I
would
just
be
don't think
more
that's what this is.
plausible. I mean, you could say like
Well-
the Midwestern Alliance or something.
Well, I
don't
actually
know,
have a
just-
theory about the Texas and California thing. I was wondering how that could make sense, but like that's the only real thing. Like, they don't spend any time on it, so like you hear that
Yeah.
and a couple other like tidbits, and that's all you need, just set dressing. But if I
Mhm.
was to try and like make sense of that, you know, Texas right wing, like the right wing politics in Texas, they don't want to be overstepped by federal government. It makes perfect sense that like secession is like it's on billboards
Sure,
and shit in
sure,
the
yeah.
South. So that makes
Mhm.
sense. Also, it seems like the president in this movie, they're talking about him using drone strikes against American civilians. It's not that hard to think that the people who are anti-war or who are anti-violence or whatever that humanists that exist in California, the left wing, the bleeding hearts or whatever, might also take significant issue, and they're both economic powerhouses of the country. So maybe they do align to defeat the greater evil. Like, I could see that being something if they wanted to take it a Game of Thrones route instead of, you know, this
Yeah.
just strictly objective point of view of a collapsing empire.
Yeah,
So
I don't think it's really important to the movie, to be honest with you, to suss any of that out.
yeah. It's interesting to
Uh,
talk about though, or think
Yeah,
about for
I
sure.
don't either. It just like there were moments like that that felt more like strategy than actual
And I think it was
than
strategy, like in
yeah, than
fairness.
actual like
yeah,
narration, you know, like oh, I'm telling a story. It felt like oh, I want to
I
give you
think it was
something, but
a
don't point at me. Like I don't know. So those moments honestly like kind of bothered me. What I did kind of hope that he would explore to capture that nuance, and there were like especially I know it can be difficult. I know there's a lot that could be done with this, but one thing they're driving and there's this one intersection or something and it says like go Steelers on it or something like that. And one
dude.
of the
Yeah.
things I kind of hoped to get that kind of nuance where you could do like a show don't tell type of situation is the idea. I mean, I don't think we quite realize, and maybe we realize maybe more now, but you know, growing up in the United States as America, like our states are countries. They make the way they make their own laws, the way that their internal economy works, the internal voting works, the internal culture works, the problems of the state. I mean, like if you took it, I mean, I think it was like if California was its own country, it would be like it would be more powerful than France in the world, like from a world perspective. And I don't think we really see that being like Americans are like, I'm going to California. I'm going to drive to Texas. I'm in Florida. Like Florida's bigger than South Korea. And so like having these pockets, I thought that there was going to be more nuance about state identity or how you I mean Jesse Plemons does this kind of little bit of you know how do you
mm,
identify and where are you from and we have these things of like the ghost dealers the like are the city pride in Philadelphia and you know and things like that and I was kind of hoping we would get more tribalism to show that once the idea that we're Americans disappears, it's so easy for people to fall into these small tribalisms because it already exists. It's already ingrained in our specific society of like, this is my city and this is my state and this is my
Hmm.
team. And the thin thread of we're Americans collapses, it's so easy to fall in. But I didn't really feel any of that like tribalism.
mm.
See, I think.
Well, I think this movie
Go
is
ahead, Bob.
really highlighting the overall fragility of like democracy and society as a whole. It's all just a bunch of ideas that people decide to agree upon until they don't anymore, and then it fucking falls away anywhere, no matter where you are. So like I think that's the overall like driving point. I don't think
Right.
it's really specific to America, even though this movie does take place in America for sure. I don't think it's necessarily specific to America or like I don't know that that was necessarily Alex Garland's uh driving point for making this movie. I mean, he's British, you know.
Well, here's my thought about that: as I don't think that the story, the core of the story that he's telling, is inherently an American story. In fact, I think it's a fucking eternal story of the exchange of power and the way that's handled, like, and the way that fucks over people. I think that can be applied to any number of successful countries in the history of the world. But I do think it's speaking to Americans. So I think showing like the Steelers written on a bridge and then two bodies hanging next to it is incredibly fucking powerful. Like as an like viewing as an American who's passed that kind of graffiti 100 times. Like I don't know, like that to me works. And to speak to like the idea that I don't know what you were saying, Justin, about how like you wish there was more tribalism or whatever. I can understand wanting more of that. Like it'd be interesting to see more of that if there's a compendium novel or something, maybe that. But like, I don't think that adding more of that, because I think Jesse Plemons is the stand-in for that train of thought. He is pointing all this shit out. And it doesn't matter what like Florida means versus Missouri, and like he kind of like looks down on Florida a little bit because it's coastal and not central. Like he makes a point about that. Like so he like I think he's the figurehead of that way of thinking, the way that the girl at the shop is the figurehead for the head in the sand, and the sniper is the figurehead for the guy in the trenches. Like these are you could face swap this with a million different people in a million different countries in a million different time periods, and it would all still resonate. I don't think that necessarily. I think that with that as the broad scope of this movie, that narrowing in more on that is necessarily a good idea, because I think it just bogs things down. And to Rob's point earlier, like the, this is speaking to Americans, is speaking to like directly to our fucking people, and it's saying like, hey, like don't you want to avoid this? And you're not going to be able to get that message across if people get bogged down in like, of course they made Jesse Plemons the evil Republican. No one's gonna, nobody on like of a certain point of view is going to want to hear that,
Yeah.
because he's objectively evil. And if you find yourself in alignment with that character in any political way, suddenly this
Yeah.
movie's woke,
Sure,
or it's
sure, yeah, I
canceled,
understand
or
that,
it's
yeah.
whatever.
I also
So,
really appreciate the vagueness, actually, because if you found yourself in the second Civil War in America and you decided to drive across state lines and you came across, who the fuck knows you're going to come across. You really don't know who you're talking to, what they believe, what they stand for. Are they your friend? Are they your enemy? Like, everybody is a suspect at that point. You don't know who you can trust, and it feels very like real in that way, which is truly terrifying. It's scary. It's very scary. I don't know. I guess I just overall appreciate the bigness of it in this movie.
yeah, I could
And-
see wanting
yeah.
to drill down more, but like, I
And-
just don't think this is the movie for that.
And I would like to clarify that I am not asking Alex Garland to say the red conservative party did this, and or that the president is of this party and he did this. It just, there were times where it felt like strategy, and I understand the need to do that, but it also, I don't know, there's something about this movie, like those types of decisions, and I guess the like lack of some emotional resonance or diving into some of these characters or attaching it. It gets to a point of like a sense of vagueness to justify that train of thinking, that it ultimately to me kind of like feels like a cardboard cutout. Like it doesn't have this depth. I can see the picture of what it's trying to show me, and I recognize the image and like what it is, and it's not hard to decipher, but it doesn't have the depth that it needs. Like it's not a full shape, it's just a point. And that's what's kind of bothering me, is all these calculations serve to protect one thing but ultimately make it flatter or make it, I don't know, like just a point. And
Yeah,
for a movie that's about a narrate, there are tons of forms of media that do that, so like to have a film that's going to be a narration and like these visuals, it just feels kind of flat.
I think that it would. Yeah, I can understand it. To me, like it's like, you don't have Game of Thrones time here to really lay
Sure,
out,
yeah.
like, and you don't have to say right, like left or right or any of that stuff, but like it's pretty implied in a lot of ways, and they sidestep that, I do think, strategically and for good reason, for in my taste. Like, and I think that the thing that they supplant that with is the arc of Kirsten Dunst and Sammy and Joel and Jesse's who I was looking for, like specifically, and also specifically Jesse as like a young person born into this almost.
Yeah.
Like I think that's our through line, and the rest is set dressing for that story, but it's like very important set dressing because it resonates with us as sort of like as like flashpoints, and like again, like the Steelers thing, like these things are like just seeing the juxtaposition, seeing what we associate to be third world country behavior happening, in our backyard. It's just visualizing that and experiencing that along with these people, to me, is enough of an emotional through line for me to really feel it, especially even and maybe especially because they are trying their hardest not to feel anything about it as a de facto objective of their job. I don't know. Like, to me, that really fucking works. And I think that if they had like a 12-hour miniseries instead, then I would love to know a little bit more about how these factions showed up and like what Todd would do if he ran into the guys hanging people up in the car wash. Maybe they hate each other for some reason. Like that's all interesting and it's like
Todd.
good world building, but
My
I don't
boy
need this world
Todd.
built out in order to get to the core conceit.
God.
And the more that you build it out, the more it distracts, I think, from that central message. And I think the bluntness is necessary with a movie that is dealing with something that people don't want to deal with directly, period. Like
Yeah.
Old Jesse Plemons looks like he lost a lot of weight because
he did.
in a couple
Did-
movies.
Did you
movies-
guys know he's married to Kirsten Dunst?
No.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Me either. It was news to me. Yeah, they're married.
Good for him. She's great.
Cool.
I guess whoever they originally cast in that role of the unnamed soldier that he plays in this movie, they like bailed last minute.
Oh.
Oh.
So I guess they just got him to fill in real quick because
Cool.
you know he's married to Kirsten Dunst or whatever, and he was around, and he fucking nails it. He is
does.
repulsive. That man plays the best piece of shit ever. ever.
He's good at playing a villain.
He's very good at
and
that
he
shit.
doesn't always play a villain. He's
No.
he's been in a lot of things where he's not that type of character, but when he shows up to play that character, he
He's
nails
so
it,
good.
yeah.
He knows
He
how to slide into that
excels.
role for sure. Yeah, he's great.
God damn.
Yeah.
dude.
I don't know. I thought that
Yeah.
all the performances were great in this movie. The guy who plays Sammy is all over, like in all
he was
kinds of things.
good. I like
And
him.
he's so-
Yeah. He's
the
really
guy,
good.
the
Oh, man.
main guy, I thought he
Joel.
was cheesy.
He might have been the weakest point.
I thought he was
But
cheesy. There was
I
one
like
time
when he
there
was
one
screaming
line.
to himself, though. Like
There was one
that was
line.
to me.
I
I
like
think-
that moment. I like that moment.
I like that a lot. Quietly screaming to himself because to me,
Yeah.
like this, like thrill seeking, all that shit.
Yeah.
That is, they're soldiers in the trenches in their own way. They're shooting, not
Sure,
bullets,
yeah.
but they're shooting, and they're on the front lines. So they're blowing off steam by being jackasses,
yeah,
as
yeah,
you do.
yeah.
And like
Yeah.
that's all. That's his whole character. He's like, yeah, I'm hard. He's not hard. He's fucking.
He's not
Like,
fucking- I mean,
He's not hard. He's soft. No, like, but he's trying. He's pretending to like love doing this, and part of him does, but he has to turn off the fucking
Yeah.
human part of his brain to feel that way, and it takes its toll.
there's a lot of really brilliant moments. The sound design of this movie I mentioned earlier. I really want to highlight it. I think it's phenomenal. The beginning of the movie opens up with like they're shooting in New York City. There's a suicide bomber. The bomb goes off, and then it's just silence. There's a long stretches of like really brilliantly placed silence in this movie that are then like punctuated by really loud explosions or like shots from various guns and stuff. And then you've got scenes with people being executed in these really brutal ways, and then they're juxtaposed with these like pop songs or like hip hop songs or and
I
it just
didn't
sort of
like that.
well, it further highlights the like nonchalance that like these people carry themselves with, which I think is so fucking true to life.
Yeah.
Because like I don't know, the internet is what it is, but I feel like you have to disassociate to be able to do these sorts of horrific things. So like Jesse Plemons wearing those glasses, just like murdering folks.
That's
I don't know,
fine.
like
Yeah.
you just kind of have to like separate yourself. Excuse me.
I also think that like you could argue that he just loves what he's doing, and like doing things
Probably,
to people
yeah.
like that is not necessarily, as much as we like to think of it, it is also human to want to do those things, which
Yeah.
is fucked up, and people lean into that because when they get the opportunity to, that's where like war criminals come from. It's not always for profiteering purposes, like fucking Mengele existed, people do shit for their own fucked up reasons because they like it, because they are happy to do it. And that's what's like, this is what like the opens the door. Our apathy towards things like that, and toward
Yeah.
like, and our willingness to like see something horrific and then listen as hard as we can to the hip hop song that's in our earbuds, like instead of paying attention to it or dealing with it. That's what allows somebody like Jesse Plemons in this movie to operate the way that he does and to indulge in those evils. That's how I see him.
Randy for president. You're already in DC, baby. I'm writing you in. Let's go.
Right.
No, I'm gonna listen to hip hop after this. Are you kidding? Fuck that.
Oh, which artist, Randy? Are you gonna listen?
Oh, I'm big hip hop head here, obviously.
Oh,
Um,
you know.
Oh, One thing I don't know. I was wondering if another thing that kind of bothered me. So I just think the writing is like kind of weak in this movie. So maybe it is served by other elements. I wasn't crazy about, I did think a lot of the sound design was good. I didn't like the pop song drops or the song drops. I thought, like, generally there's two that come to my mind that I specifically thought, like, that's really bad. I don't like when they raid that building, right?
Yeah.
That building, and at the very end, I think, or there was,
When they execute the
Yeah.
3 or 4 guys.
I
yeah.
didn't like it at all.
I
And
liked
then
it. I mean, liked it. I
Yeah.
appreciated it, I guess.
there was other elements too. This happens a couple times. The one that really stood out to me, they was the kind of like the big red flag for what's this writing going to be like, that kind of put me on like warning, was how Jesse joins the group the next morning when she's just sitting in the car and Joel's got this like, yeah, I met this girl and she's pretty cool, so she's gonna be in our track. I was like, what are we doing here? Did that not bother anybody else? I thought that was so
A little
weird.
bit, yeah. He does kind of like creep on her afterwards, which makes
He
a little more
does,
sense, I
yeah.
guess. Like maybe he's trying to get some romantic thing going or something.
I
but-
didn't really get that impression, but I did see it. Like, I think that he is a fool. Like, he is being a fool as a way of coping, and so
Yeah.
putting somebody else in the line of fire, it's not the responsible thing to do. Kirsten Dunst knows it's not the responsible thing to do.
It's like
Sammy
the whole
knows it's not the responsible thing to do.
explanation.
But like, the thing is, like, again, they are forced into objectivity. It's like, you know what? If Sammy wants to come, I don't have a problem with it. You decide. And then like bringing Jesse along is like, she's like, you know what? I'm not going to argue with you. I think it's a fucking bad idea though, and I'm going to say
That's
that bluntly.
interesting too, though. Like the sort of like shirking of responsibility, like is sort of an ongoing theme. Like,
Yeah.
like you were kind of highlighting, Randy. Like, just sort of turning a blind eye and turning on your music or whatever. Like, yeah, it's sort of like it adds to the fucking problem. And she would have died if Kirsten Dunst hadn't been selfless enough to.
She would have died a
sacrifice
couple
herself.
of times. Like,
Yeah. If they
there's
weren't
not
really
one
looking for it.
incident that she could have died in. She
Yeah.
almost
So
got
it's-
executed by a fucking bumpkin at a
it's-
gas station.
It's an ongoing theme. I get that, like it feels a little thin. I do understand that though. Like that makes sense.
I just
I don't know. It's about time to land a plane, boys. We've been kind of going. Any other like
We
big
can
points
go.
that you want to touch on though? I think we could go on and on.
Ron Swanson as president isn't what we thought it would be. I'll tell you that much.
It's not. It's not.
Somehow worse.
The other, I think the other one that popped in my mind of like, oh, this feels like thin from a story, like just like we got to introduce, is those extra guys showing up too, that are then the ones that are executed. They like show up and they're like,
They are
oh, I'm your old
red-shirty.
friend, and like I don't, that
Yeah.
whole sequence, the
see-
way
yeah.
it played out, it just thought it was weak.
I don't
That
know.
was
I don't know how
thin.
else you do that without like
You could
just
have at least
losing-
introduced them in the beginning. They're
I
at
don't
the
know what-
bar.
Hotel or something.
Yeah, like
They
give us
could
a
have, yeah.
little bit of moment. If you know you're gonna bring
Okay,
those people
sure,
back,
yeah.
give us one scene with them.
Yeah. The high speed
Okay,
of
sure,
car
yeah.
hopping I did find unrealistic.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
don't know.
I feel like acting like a jackass is a coping mechanism in a war zone. I think that's how we end up with fucking
That's-
idiots doing war crimes
That's fair.
accidentally and
That's
like
fair.
friendly fire and shit. Like I don't know. Like people act like
Nitpick.
assholes all the time.
Nitpick. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go and rate this thing out of 5. I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna rate this thing. Juice, why don't you kick us off? Out of 5, how do you feel?
Yeah, some positives and some negatives here. I said at the beginning, to me, this did not live up to this kind of like, I guess, expectation I have for Alex Garland, which to be fair, I was looking at the beginning of it and I don't know why. I was just under the impression that Annihilation was Alex Garland's 3rd film and that Min was the drop off for me as his 4th. It was that's not true. So this is his 4th film and I don't know where I got that impression in my mind. I guess the difference is I really love Ex Machina and I really love Annihilation. And in those films, I guess we do a lot more exploration into the characters. And I do think that the characters here are presented in an interesting aspect. And I appreciate that aspect because it personally like resonates with me. And I think it's an interesting aspect to have this attempted neutrality through these atrocities. And so I do think that it's interesting. But what I think it leaves this film with is this kind of lack to me of emotional resonance and lack of personal perspective, I guess, to where it just feels like we said these kind of blunt warnings. And not to say that they're not effective in their own kind of way or that they're not showing the potential risk of actions of the world and of society at this time, but because like I said before, it just felt like a cutout. It felt like a dare warning. Don't do drugs. And it's like, why? Like it just I
Don't
don't
do Civil
know.
War.
It's yeah, don't do Civil War. It's bad. It's like, and then there's some good visuals to go along with that. There's some like interesting vignettes to kind of support that idea, but there's something missing for me. I felt like I wasn't as sold on their performances as Randy. I did think for the most part that they were good, but it's another aspect of let's have these main characters who for the most part act in a non-emotional way. Well, then it's like, well, there's sometimes where I don't know, you're not getting the reaction that people should have. Or I don't know. It's a push and pull for me. I did think the visuals were great. That explosion at the beginning where the dude runs in with the flag and then she's just taking pictures and the sign drops out. Like there was like really great moments, impactful moments that looked and sounded great. But at the end of this movie, I disagree. I like where y'all were saying all the parts came together and like really supported it at the end. At the end of this movie, I felt kind of hollow, honestly. I felt like I had watched this whirlwind swirling around, but in the middle was just this kind of void of, I don't know. I thought, like I said, some of the lines were weak, some of the writing were weak, some of the narration or like the narrative beats, like to get from A to B, like things just had like, oh, and here's my old friends. And then they're the ones who get executed. And oh, I just met this girl last night. She's going to ride with us. And like, I don't know. There was sometimes too many, like, I'm going to drop this dialogue to get us from A to B, but it's not really supported by anything. Um, Overall, though, I still think it's like a decent movie. I don't really ever want to watch it again either. Not that it like just severely bummed me out. I just didn't think that there was a whole lot of a good point to it. So I think I'm going to end this at a 3 out of 5.
Hmm. All right.
Bob, are you want to go to Randy next, or you
I,
still
no,
considering?
no,
Do
I
you
can
need
jump
a
in.
minute?
No,
Yeah.
I've already written it down. I already wrote it down.
Whoa, Bob, it's in ink.
Oh
All right,
no.
Bob. Out
Oh
of
It's
God.
in ink. It's in ink. I think you bring up an interesting point, Juice, and I think it's somewhat intentional that the ending feels a bit hollow because our main character Jesse, one of our main characters anyway, is like she's green. She's never been on the battlefield before, but she wants to get in there and take some pictures of some gruesome stuff. And when she first gets her taste of war, she like full on breaks down, and it seems like she eventually starts to harden herself to it. And then at the end of the movie, her hero, her mentor, her uh, whatever you want to call it, Kirsten Dunst's character gets shot, gets killed above her, and then she takes pictures as she's dying and falls down, and then walks away, and then barely turns around to look at her corpse before she moves on. And it's this sort of like hardening that I guess is necessary if you're going to be a neutral party of the press that's like at the front line, doing this kind of work. I guess there's a sort of necessity to it, but it also like really does beg the question: like, is that what everybody else needs to be? Do we all need to be so disassociated, so neutral? Like, is that okay? I don't know. I don't know the answer, but it's like it's an interesting thing that like this young girl is like I don't know, so hardened towards the end, and she just wants to get like the quote unquote money shot of the dead president. It's like it's fucking sick and twisted, and I think it really does like drive home the kind of like fruitless nature of war, which is I really think the primary point of this movie is just it's an anti-war movie overall. Of course, it's called Civil War, and it's very pointedly in a potentially near future of America for a reason because we're going down a certain path. But I think that's the sort of like neutral, like disassociated kind of vibe this movie gives off is like so embedded in culture, in American culture specifically. But like, I think the internet has a lot to do with that. And in that, like, the shot of them with the president, the dead president at the end, it truly feels just, it just feels like a selfie, man. It's gross. It's disgusting. And I think that like neutral feeling is what is almost the point. I don't know. Beyond that, I think the performances here are like really great across the board. Kirsten Dunst does a great job. Sammy, I don't know the actor's name. He does a great fucking job. Joel is like probably the worst, I guess. I think he might overact a little bit here and there, but he does okay. Nick Offerman does well. You barely see him, which I think is probably for the best. The sound design, I think, is amazing. Actually, I think the needle drops are adequately juxtaposed in a way that like makes you feel really uncomfortable. The silence is used really well in this movie. The explosions are used really well. The siege on DC, when they're just like shooting missiles across the city, is like such a crazy thing to see on screen. Sammy's death, super heartfelt. I thought it's such a beautiful and terrifying moment in this movie. Jesse crawling out of the mass grave. Jesse Plemons playing one of the most heinous characters in a movie I've seen in a long time. I think there's a lot going for this movie, and I think it's a very difficult, an extremely difficult movie to pull off in a way that doesn't totally fail. And I think this movie mostly succeeds, actually. I think Alex Garland pulls it off. I think he does, man. It highlights, I don't know, the importance of a neutral press. It does a lot. I think it does a lot, man. I think my biggest ding is that it's so unpleasant to watch because it's so plausible. Which I think is mostly a compliment to the movie. So I'm gonna come in with a 4.5 out of 5 on this. I think it's pretty successful.
Nice.
Randy, how do you feel?
Yeah, so I thought it was really interesting that you just said that, or that you guys were saying how hollow the ending felt, like, and that you agreed, Bob, because it seems like we're on a lot of the same page. But I feel like what you described is right. Like it is, to what you're saying, it is like kind of hollow having, not Sammy, excuse me, Jesse, see her hero get knocked down by her hero. She is gradually becoming more and more headstrong and not just capable, but headstrong and getting out there and putting herself in harm's way, the way that Lee might have done when she was a kid. And they've spare no opportunity to compare the two. And her hero dies, and she experiences that death through the disassociation of a camera lens. That is like, and it's like a beautiful moment, like visually too. And then she can barely bring herself to look with her own eyes at the person who saved her life that she cared for so deeply. I think that disassociation is absolutely not played as something that's you should want or you should advocate for. It is something that is a byproduct of their ambition and what is ultimately a noble goal for them, or what should be a noble goal for them, which is disseminating this information so that people can use their own like human reactions that they're denying themselves to make informed decisions about how to proceed into the future. Like it's to me, like it's the cost of being press. It's a cost of doing more. It's nothing about this is a positive thing. And it is grotesque that they take a selfie over the dead body of the president and all that stuff. But that is battle hardening going on. And that is not a good thing necessarily. It might be a necessary thing for some goals, but overall, that is not good for this person. Kirsten Dunst showed that explicitly in her whole character. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I do think that was intentional, and I do think that it was like intentionally like a gut punch for us, but shown dispassionately for a reason. Like, so yeah, I just wanted to point that out real quick. I think I've already said a lot about this movie that I really like. I can kind of see what Juice you're saying. I just didn't really experience it that way. Like to me, the core of this isn't even like war is hell. It's this is like in the trailer they said all empires fall, and that's a great tagline, sure, but it's also fucking true. And like that's what this movie grapples with, is like the inevitable conclusion of every state that has ever existed. Like I mean like country state. And no matter how successful you get, there's always an end point, and what that could look like to a country that is currently and continuingly getting more and more divisive and tribal, and people are more and more doing that or getting disassociated. Those are the two options available for people to cope with our current situation. We're all boiling. So to me, that point is heavily supported. The as dispassionate as it is at points, it is done that way for a purpose, and I think that purpose is sound and interesting. I just think this movie's fucking fascinating, honestly. I'm very interested in it. I've talked myself into liking it more over the course of this hour or so, because when I came in, I was like just still parsing it. There's a lot of anti-war movies. There's a lot of movies that do similar things. This movie tries to do a lot, and to me, just maybe doesn't step quite far enough in a couple of directions, but like I also understand the restraint needed to focus in on that core. So to me, I think it's well written. I think the performances are all very good. I think even Joel is justifiable, even though it is a little bit bigger and seems a little out of place with how grim everybody else is feeling it. He's not dispassionate. He is flying off the fucking handle half the time, and that's how he copes. But he's still using it's still a method of retreat, emotional retreat. So I think it all services the end to me, and we as an audience are both horrified and invited to disassociate ourselves. And like I don't know, I think it's really smart, honestly. All the other stuff I said earlier, still true. I agree the sound design's great. I like the needle drops because they again push that dispassionate or this disconnection from what's happening in front of us and how we feel that, how we experience that. I think it's all very fucking interesting and good to talk about. And I think for my part, I do think it's kind of a necessary thing to make a movie that is this blunt, saying like, hey, motherfuckers, you want to avoid this, right? Like, you don't want to have something similar happen, right? Please listen and stop fucking, retreating from this. Stop, let the people who are living and dying to tell you the story of how our country is falling apart or how the world is falling apart, honor them with your attention every so often, and try not to get bogged down in microcosms of things, because eventually this is going to fail, and it's going to happen because grains of sand stop working in the machinery or start getting into the machinery. Get that grain of sand out of there. Pay attention to the grains of sand. Bad metaphor, but whatever. I give this a 4.5 as well, I think. I was very close to giving it a 4, but after getting as passionate as I have for this, I got to give it to it.
How would y'all
So-
both ranking it so high? How would y'all rank this in like? Because I didn't think this was up to par with the films I love from Alex Garland. Seems like y'all don't agree with that.
Ex
I
Machina
haven't
is still
seen-
top, I think.
I've liked all of Alex Garland stuff. Like you guys, I know you guys were definitely more like off board for Men than I was. I thought that
Yeah.
was fascinating too. And that, whatever. But like that is probably my least favorite out of what I've seen from him as a director. But like also he wrote fucking 28 Days Later. That shit is incredible. He wrote Sunshine. Like that shit's incredible.
Yeah.
Devs, the miniseries, he wrote that shit. It's all dealing with very large topics and like distilling it down to a handful of characters for the most part.
Yeah.
It's very hard work, laborious shit to try and do that without turning everybody off, and it's going to be divisive. So
He
guess
did
this would be
it's a
my-
nice.
Yeah, I guess this would be my number 3 below.
Number three.
I do think this is better than Men for sure.
This is probably my number 2. I wasn't as hot on Annihilation as y'all. It's good, but I probably
really
like
like
this
that.
more. It sounds like he said he's going to go back to focusing on writing after this and not directing. For better or worse, I don't know. So we'll see what he does next, man. This
I think
was
he's attached to 28 years later, isn't he? Am I wrong about that?
I don't know. I'm maybe. I know they just announced that. Could be. This was A24's most expensive movie. They spent $50 million on it to make this.
Damn.
And opening weekend, I believe it made $26 million already. So it should do okay. I would
Okay.
think.
Maybe
Yeah.
It'll make its money back, and that's all you can ask for a movie this big. I think I remember them filming this. Beck and I were talking about it in DC, like that they had shut down some of the monuments or whatever. But Beck reminded me of it and was like, "Yeah, I just thought they meant the fucking Avengers were filming here." Or something.
I love
yeah,
that.
No,
yeah, I guess
I
that's
will
true.
say, since I poo-pooed a lot of it, that ending battle, like shooting with the monuments, and so that was fucking cool. I
Yeah.
It
forgot
was
how
Independence
cool that
Day
was.
mask off. I loved that. Like
yeah,
Yeah,
it was
Independence Day
actually
shows something that's just
Yeah.
destroyed the White House. Holy shit! And it's like, but that was like pretendo aliens from outer space. They
Yeah,
just strip that artifice right the fuck out of here and just destroy monuments in this movie.
that was
Yeah.
pretty cool. Honestly, that whole like sequence, yeah, the ending. Maybe that's why the end felt so hollow. I was like, man, they really were ramping up that last 15 minutes.
Well, that our aggregate's going to be a 4 even on this.
That's
So let's go
fair.
ahead. Let's go ahead and jump into our Rotten Tomatoes. See what the critics and users have to say about Civil War.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Rotten Tomatoes segment. I'm going to have these two gents guess within the best of their abilities what the aggregate positive score is on RottenTomatoes.com for Civil War. Starting as we always do with the critic review. There are 247 critical reviews on the Tomatometer for critics. So I'm going to start with Bob tonight. Bob, out of those 247 reviews, what percentage would you say are positive reviews?
I don't know what the buzz is on this.
Me neither, to be honest.
Yeah,
So
I haven't heard
I'm gonna,
anything about this.
yeah, just like a couple of folks on the Slack channel have kind of talked about it, but that's like all I know.
I
So
didn't
I'm
even see
gonna-
that.
I'm gonna go with what we gave it, 80%. Let's roll with that.
80%. All right. Juice, over, under, sideways? What are we thinking?
I haven't heard anything at all. Like I haven't even really been on the Slack too much these days with seeing the buzz about that. So, but I don't think people are gonna like this as much as you guys. I think y'all are gonna be on that. Like I think on the oozers and the critics, I'm gonna go lower today just because I don't think it's gonna be as hot as a 4.5. So I'm gonna take the under. I'm gonna say 70.
70? All right. Well, one of you is only 3 percentage points away from glory. Your path of glory is just 3 percentage points away. And that person is Bob because the correct answer is 83% certified fresh.
All right. Damn.
Certified fresh.
That's
That's
a hell
right.
skeet.
It's a hell
It's,
ski.
I'm told that that is a hell skeet. It has been revealed to me that that
I've
is
been
the case.
told.
Now, similarly, there are 250 plus verified ratings in the audience score. So we're in about the same zone of people, a number of people. Juice, will start with you this time. Out of those 250 verified ratings from the audience, what do you think that the average positive score is? Or, I'm sorry, the percentage of positive scores are.
I'm gonna keep it about the same, but I'm gonna take the comedy number to lighten the mood of 69 dudes.
Oh, my.
69 dudes!
In a pit.
There we go. Damn. Bring it back down.
Yep. I'm not going to allow you to invite levity to this podcast. Yeah. Okay. So 69 from Juice. Bob, are we going over? Are we going under? Where are we going?
Man, this could be pretty negative. I could see this going low, man. I don't know. I don't know what the people think, but I'm gonna stay optimistic and I'm gonna take the over with a 75.
75. All right. Well, you guys are again very close. One of you is once again 3 percentage points away from the correct response. And that correct response is 78%. So Bob is going to sweep this week, actually.
Damn.
And the
78%
Hell's Gates
positive.
win!
Damn.
There you
I
go.
did not think people would like this that much.
Yeah, I mean, it's hitting people on it. I think that people, if I had to wager or I had to guess as to why this
You
is,
have to.
besides it being,
It's all
I
you
think, a
guys,
pretty good movie.
it's all you Americans swimming in the field.
Well, it's people like that like we've been swimming in the filth, and now it's time to be like, look at this fucking filth.
I was
Look at it.
born in
I
it.
smell like shit.
This filth.
Oh my god.
Little idiots! Idiots!
All right. Let's read the critics' consensus. It reads as follows: tough and unsettling by design, Civil War is a gripping close-up look at the violent uncertainty of life and of a nation in crisis, or in a nation in crisis. Yeah, I was right the first time. I think that's reasonable enough.
All right.
Yeah, sure.
And now we'll close things off on this segment with some negative reviews, as we always do, because sometimes they're funny. I kind of doubt it this time, but
Make me
we'll
laugh,
find out.
Randy.
Here we go. I'm gonna say,
I don't know. This one
Waka
feels
waka for
primed to
everything.
have some wacky comments on it.
ooh. Well, I haven't pre-screened them, so I'm probably gonna read the ones that are not. So let's just go with that.
Get the bleakest one.
Here we go. Alex Garland's Civil War features some of the most impressive, tense filmmaking of the year, and then makes a few baffling choices that knock it far, far back. That was a
Yeah.
5 out of 10 score. So, I mean, that person seems to be in your zone, Juice.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
Let's see. Let's find another one. Some of the film's ideas are provocative. Some are standard issue dystopian. Some are vague. But what's unforgivable is the flatness of so much of the staging.
Flatness.
Staging.
I don't know about the staging, but
Yeah, I'm not sure the flatness of the
I'm
staging.
feeling
I'm not-
that flatness though. Something about this just feels so cardboard.
I think it's intended to make you somewhat feel that way, to be like, why do I feel this way about a movie where you see Americans executed by other Americans? Like,
I
I
agree.
think that's part
Yeah.
of the point.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to make you feel good, and it's not supposed to make you feel triumphant. It's supposed to make you feel
I
fucking
wasn't
disgusted with
expecting to
yourself and
feel
everyone else.
triumphant.
I know. I'm just saying,
I
like,
feel
it's
oddly
That wasn't my
triumphant.
expectation going into Civil War.
well, they ultimately triumph in the end.
I mean, yeah, I guess so.
That was just a feel-good hit of the spring, wasn't it?
Yeah,
We
man.
don't, you know
Civil
what?
War.
We don't know Ron Swanson's perspective. We didn't get a chance to get an interview. We don't know where he's coming from here, guys. We don't know if they triumph. Or
I think
not.
he's coming from Washington, D.C. That's my understanding. All right, we'll read one more. Just maybe there'll be a funny one. Maybe.
Both
let's see.
sides. Am I right, boys?
Both sides are just equally equal in all equal ways. All right, here we go. Rather than articulating nuanced thoughts about America's political instability or the role journalists play in society, Civil War plays it safe with a story so hesitant to say anything meaningful that it feels like Garland is out of his narrative depth. Okay,
I
none of these are
I
funny,
kind
and
of
that's the
agree with
greatest sin
all
of all.
of those.
I disagree with that. I think it's
Yeah, I do too.
very intentional in what it says and what it doesn't say.
I think you have to engage with the movie as it is and not as you would prefer it to be. Like, not saying to you, Juice, I'm saying to like
Yeah.
this guy, really. But like, to me, like, the movie is intentionally, it treats you like the boiled frog that you are, that is already boiling, and you're like, oh shit, it's trying to break you out of that. And
I'm
by
swimming in shit.
it does that. Oh shit, I've been swimming in shit all this time.
We are
Um,
swimming
know.
in shit.
breaking people out of
I'm not.
their coping mechanisms long enough for them to rescue fucking American democracy seems noble enough to me. All right, let's end this segment on that just gleeful note.
All right.
Thanks for
Bob?
the uplifting segment, Randy. This is a brand new movie. There's basically no trivia, so I got nothing. Let's go ahead and jump into our Cooter of the Week.
Straight chillin'.
Gooder of the week.
Juice. What is a Cooter and why do we hunt them?
So, Cooter's character type in a straight chillin' exclusive. Cooter must hit 3 of these 5 points to be considered a Cooter, but we want the Cooter with the most points. The 5 points of Cooterdom are sexual deviance, manipulation, smug arrogance, overall looking attire, and overall patheticness. I think we got ourselves at least 1 or 2 Cooters this week, boys. We want to start off with Team Todd.
Jesse Plemons.
Sure.
We
My
gotta,
boy.
we gotta do
I
it.
mean, Jesse
gotta go
Plemons'
back
name
to-
being on a roster is a red flag in and of itself for.
I
Cooter
got a
hunting.
reference. We all watched Breaking Bad together, right? Or some. We used to watch it
Yeah,
together,
yeah.
and I used to tease Bob so hard because I would root for Todd because he hated him so much.
I hated that character.
I would try to like justify
so
his character. I'd be
much.
like, oh, I mean, he's just doing what's best for him.
He did the
It's-
worst shit ever in that show. I hate him
And his
so
name was
much. Todd. Team Todd. I'm just
okay.
Team Todd. God.
Team Todd.
Well,
is
because it was doing like the
eternally etched into my
Walter.
brain.
It would do
Yeah.
the like Walter versus what's his
Yeah.
name?
Jesse.
Jesse, yeah.
Well, it's
So,
Walter
oh,
and
yeah.
Jesse, and it's also the era
And
of
I'd be like,
Twilight.
well, I'm
so
Team
this
Todd.
person,
Yeah.
team that person was a thing.
Ugh.
Just
So,
razzing
yeah.
Bob. It's
Look
been
at his
going on
tire.
for-
Idiot.
With his fucking glasses, looking at tire.
Looking at tire, okay.
Check.
Smug arrogance.
arrogance through the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got it.
Manipulation.
Manipulation for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Um,
yeah.
Overall
Pathetic-
patheticness.
patheticness.
Yes. Gets run his ass.
I like that's the.
That's not what I would have
It's all
said, but
better.
yes.
I just hate this man, and it's really making every Cooter point seem all the more plausible.
Sexual deviance is the only thing he doesn't have because
Yeah, there's
but
nothing
probably
he had,
just
like,
'cause we don't
molested
have enough
somebody.
time. Like if you
Yeah.
gave him more screen time, probably. But that's the
Maybe.
only one.
Yeah.
4 out of 5 for sure. Who else? There's got to be more.
I mean, there's the
Um,
car wash gang. They're a real fun
Yeah.
bunch. That guy who explains who those people are, he's like, "Oh yeah, I went to high school with this guy," and the guy, like, I don't know,
Yeah.
man, that shit's grim.
Yeah.
So yeah, smug arrogance certainly. I think
It was
is going
interesting that
on.
the
Yeah,
Canadian
yeah.
money had a lot more value. I like that.
Yeah, it was
That's a
interesting.
cool little
yeah.
detail.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that guy, okay, or that gang. I thought when he was like leading her off, I thought there was gonna be some sexual deviance going on, but
Yeah, but
I was
We
more
didn't
worried
get
about the
that.
violence, but it could have gone that way too.
yeah. But
Didn't get
manipulation.
I don't think so. I think he's manipulated, or at least like talked out of doing anything grotesque.
Yeah, he
Further.
is
Yes.
manipulated. Yeah, yeah. He is diffused.
I'd like
yeah.
to take your picture.
I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna hit it. We don't really get a lot of time with.
Yeah,
them,
you
to be
don't-
honest with-
They're just
Yeah,
kind
the
of
thing is-
gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we get enough out
kinda
of them.
pieces
He
of
doesn't get a
shit.
monologue of his own, really. So
Yeah.
Just
Not much
torturing
around.
folks. Yeah. I don't
just
know.
a real big torturing piece of shit.
Maybe the
That's
president?
bad enough.
Ron Swanson.
Maybe. I mean, manipulation. He's
Manipulation.
lying his ass off, like
Yeah.
top to bottom, up
Manipulation.
until the end.
Smug
Yeah.
arrogance. I
He's
would
like
say.
drone striking American civilians.
We've never been
apparently.
closer to victory,
That's
motherfucker.
pathetic.
Yeah, and
Pathetic.
yeah, pathetic. He begs
Uh,
for his life. What a fool.
Like a little bitch.
Take it like a man. No. Goddamn.
Follow.
God
Damn.
It's so dark. Oh man.
Well, that's 3 already, but
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
looks all right. His no sexual deviance. So 3 out of 5, I think is
3 out
best.
of 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's just round 'em up.
Anybody else?
Jesse Plemons has got to be the king cooter.
He's
of
the
this.
cooter of the week.
He's
He-
gotta
I don't.
be.
He knows how to play a cooter. That's for damn sure.
God.
He's just got that rolled down.
He does.
All right.
All right. We got
I say
him.
we
Good
wrap
for, good for him.
Team
Good for him.
Todd. Hey, he's
I'm
married to
I'm-
Kirsten Dunst, man. And it's working for him,
Yeah.
I guess.
Apparently
Yeah.
good for him. Yeah. So
That
he's-
guy's got to
good.
be like just the sweetest man in the entire world behind the scenes. Because
He better
I don't know
be.
that if I met him, I would not immediately be like, "Oh hi."
Or swinging dong. He's
Oh,
probably just
Jesse,
swinging dong.
Oh yeah,
just a
That's-
huge
that's
piece
what
of
it
shit,
is.
but he's got a log. You know,
Yeah.
like that's
He's got a.
that motherfucker.
Oh my
yeah,
god.
we got him.
promise.
That's a. Is that a promise?
That's
the
a promise.
log. The promise
It's
of
got
the
a
log.
log. Jesse Plemons has a log. That's a promise.
But not in the way that you think that I said I did. Yeah, we got him. Let's talk about what we've been watching this week, Jill Rings.
Hey gang, what you been watching?
Juice, what you been watching?
Still not really that much, but one thing I will say is I did rewatch You'll Never Find Me in order to do I will be doing a mini cast on that one. That's one that came
Nice.
out at one of the festivals last year that we all got a chance to see and were like really high on. And then just kind of quietly dropped on Shudder this year. And I was kind of bummed that it didn't get as much kind of like attention or recognition as I kind of hoped it was. And it's probably just going to get lost in the sea of what seems like a good lineup this year. So that's
Mhm.
kind of a bummer because it definitely was one we were all high on last year. So I'll cover that in a mini cast and give people a chance to kind of like still hear us talk about it a little bit. But yeah, I would recommend people check that out though. That it is on Shudder. So if you got that, it's a good watch. Other than that though, that's really all I've been watching these days. Bob, what you been watching?
A couple things. So I know you guys have both been kind of working through the Marvel movies
Yeah.
recently,
Yeah.
and I didn't mention that to Alice at all, but she also just started working through all the Marvel movies.
Oh,
So I started watching some of those with her, and we watched Captain America: Winter Soldier, and I really enjoyed it. Like, my memory of it was fairly fond, but I enjoyed it even more than I thought I would this time. Just like a really solid action movie. Had a really good time with it. We also watched Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, which in my memory was like one of my favorite Marvel movies for sure. It didn't quite hold up to my memory. It's like okay, maybe like a mid tier kind of Marvel,
wait,
but
which one?
The first
the first
Guardians.
Guardians
Oh,
of the
Guardians.
Galaxy.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I thought I really remembered loving it, but it's kind of maybe a little more mid tier. And we started watching Guardians 2. We're about halfway through that. Haven't finished it yet, and that's yeah, maybe even lower than the first one. So I don't know. Yeah, we've been watching some
Interesting.
random Marvel movies. Also, Tournament of Champions season 5 wrapped up last week on HBO. If you guys are into like cooking tournaments, cooking shows, whatever, watch that shit. It's really super entertaining. Um, and the last thing I'll mention here is South Park for their 25th anniversary. They had this live concert at Red Rocks, and it's like a 2 hour show, and it's all on Paramount Plus. And I watched the first half of it. I haven't finished it yet. It's fucking super cool. Primus is there. Ween is there. Um,
Ryan is
Trey
goddamn.
Trey and Matt are there, and like I guess I didn't realize how like musically inclined those two dudes are. They're
Oh
like
yeah.
multi instrumentalists, and they're all over the stage, and they're like performing songs in character while playing various different instruments and stuff.
That's cool.
It's really impressive, and they've got like the characters like like with projectors like on the sides of the Red Rocks, and it's just like it's super fucking cool. I recommend checking that out if you have Paramount Plus. And there's like some surprise musical guests that come up throughout the course of it too. Super cool. But that's pretty much all I've been watching this week. Randeezy, what you been watching?
Similarly, not a whole lot. The only things that I've been primarily been watching has been catching up on the screeners from Overlook as many as I can. Still not done with that. It's just not a lot of time to dedicate to anything. But that is first on my list. I did watch the first couple episodes of the Chucky series finally. I did that before going to the festival, and I don't think I'm going to keep up with it. I've been told positive things about it, mostly not glowing, but positive. And I'm not seeing it so far, and I don't know if I have the patience to dedicate to it. Some of the stuff in there is like it feels very like WB teen drama in a lot of ways, and I'm just not feeling that from for Chucky. And I know it goes in other places. I'm sure it does, but I don't know. I guess I've never been the world's biggest Chuckster. I'm just not like interested enough in it, but I have a fondness for it, but it doesn't carry me through a whole series worth of material that is also hitting a note that I'm not particularly fond of, which is that young adult feeling. Um, so yeah, probably not going to keep going on that. I did also watch a new true crime documentary with Beck called What Jennifer Did, which is just one episode, like, or one, it's like a 90-minute thing. It's a film documentary. And it's about this girl whose parents are murdered by home invaders. Um, and they interrogate her, and like some of the story doesn't line up quite so, and it just kind of trails out from there. I don't want to like say a whole lot in case anybody wants to watch it, because I was interested to find out where that went. I don't think it's that great. Ultimately, I think it's a story that could be told in like a 15-minute YouTube video just as easily. I don't know.
Fucking
I wasn't.
Netflix, man. They draw shit out.
They do. I just felt
Every
grateful it
time.
wasn't like a 3-episode event series. So it wasn't that. It was a one and done, thank God. But it's an interesting enough story, but it's not an interesting enough story for that much material. And
Yeah.
I don't know what I got out of watching it. Like other true crimes, it's like, oh, it exposes police corruption, or it exposes religious fanaticism, or what. I don't feel that a whole lot was revealed with this about society. It's just like a little bit of a fucked up tale, and it seems like that's the worst thing that a true crime documentary can be to me. So it's not flippant though, so it's not the worst thing it can be, but it is just, I don't know, weirdly it feels like the more exploitative side of the genre, and I wasn't really feeling it at the end. And that's really about it.
Right on, Randu. Let's go and jump into our last segment of the show, which is, of course, our Hotline Screen.
Hotline screen.
If you guys are listening and would like to call and leave a voicemail to be featured on next week's show, hit us up at 904-638-3231. We got one voicemail this week. We're going to hear from our friend, the librarian. Let's hear what she's got to say.
Gentlemen, howdy. I'm calling in with my state of 2024 so far. I've seen 6 movies that have been released this year. To start from the bottom, we got First Omen, solid 1 star. Godzilla vs. Kong New Empire, 2.5. I cannot say why I dislike this movie due to spoilers. Lisa Frankenstein was 4 stars. I thought it was super cute. Immaculate, solid 4 stars. 8 left no crumbs. There are some goofy plot holes and plot points though, but otherwise this movie gave me everything. Catholic horror is back, baby. Monkey Man 4.5, nearly perfect. I don't know why I didn't give it 5 stars, but something is just missing. I think, I don't know what though. So still go see that fucking movie. And best movie I've seen so far this year, though, is Love Lies Bleeding. I gave it a 4.5. It would be 5 stars, but much like Soju giving half star for Yabos, I deduct half a star if you make me look at feces, and this movie unfortunately has a shit shot. So yeah, we are searching for that elusive 5-star 2024 release. Will it be Civil War? Probably not. Bye!
I've decided that if we ever crowdfund or produce a movie of some kind, there will absolutely be a shit shot.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
I remember her rule because that movie that has that Willem Dafoe gets stuck in like a penthouse or whatever.
Inside?
Yeah, where he just shits in a tub. I remember that like drove the movie like down into the ground for the librarian. So that always sticks out in my mind. Yeah.
Well,
Plus a
spoiler
half
alert,
star.
but according to a librarian on the Slack, it is Civil War is definitely towards the bottom for her this time around. But, whatever.
Yeah.
Opinions.
I haven't seen the First Omen or Immaculate, but that's cool to hear that they're both not total shit, honestly.
What was the first movie that she mentioned? I didn't catch.
I think it was the First Omen.
Was it the First Omen?
First Omen, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
I've heard, like, people have been saying good things. That's the first negative thing I've heard about it, but I haven't been listening very closely about it either. So, but like Immaculate and Lisa Frankenstein are both episodes, or mini episodes, one of which is out, Lisa Frankenstein, and one of which is forthcoming from me. So, get on that Patreon, I guess.
Randy.
I got feelings.
To the year, Randy.
I really want to see Immaculate because there's like multiple people that have said it's pretty dang good. So I'm curious
Yeah.
about
I'll
that.
say this. I texted you after watching it, and my opinion was way more tepid than it ended up being after like a little bit of rumination. I
Nice.
think.
All right.
So
I'll try and catch it maybe this week before it exits theaters. I feel like it won't be around too much longer, but then it'll probably be on like Hulu or something, right?
yeah, I'll be on Hulu like tomorrow.
Yeah. Curious about that. And Monkey Man, yeah, that trailer, which doesn't seem like a horror movie at all. It seems like a badass action movie.
Yeah,
that
I
looks
need to watch that.
really
I
good.
really want
yeah.
to see that actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Dev Patel starring and directed it.
Mhm.
Produced by Jordan Peele's company too, which
Oh,
Monkey's
nice.
Paw?
cool. Yeah.
Cool.
Good shit. Yeah. Thanks for calling in, librarian. Some
Yeah.
stuff we definitely need to check out for sure. Sorry you didn't like Civil War. Hopefully you like this conversation at least.
Librarian's always hard with soju. I know that.
I think she might take issue with that characterization.
I
But we'll
think she
find
might. Sopping wet with soju,
Oh,
perhaps.
Man.
Maybe. I
Are
don't
you
know.
waiting to receive my limp penis?
Anyways, yeah, call in, leave a voicemail if you want to be featured on next week's show. And I know you do. Hit us up at 904-638-3231. Gentlemen, you got any prompts you want to throw out for next week?
I kind of like the how's your 2024 shaping up question still. Like, I
Yeah,
want to hear
it's a
from
good
more
one.
people.
There's a
Especially
lot,
because,
yeah.
the past like 2 or 3 weeks,
Yeah, it
it's like
feels
the
like
floodgates have opened or something.
Yeah, man, really.
yeah. And we got some, you know what, too? We got some new trailers dropped. There was a Beetlemang trailer that dropped. There was a
Yeah.
Maxine trailer that dropped. Alien Romulus dropped.
Yeah, it did, yeah.
So, yeah, you could even comment on like the trailers. What are you thinking about all the new stuff coming up, too?
Dude,
Yeah, I would
I
love to hear that.
after watching a lot of movies at Overlook and then seeing a lot of trailers for those movies before Civil War,
Mhm.
trailers these days are
Fucking out.
fucking problematic, dude. They show way the fuck too much.
Yeah,
I
Don't
agree.
watch trailers.
I think
Just-
I think you were thinking of the same trailer right now.
there's
because
like
I felt the same.
3. There's 3
Okay, well, there's
that
at
come
least
to mind.
one that I was like, well, this is way too much information.
Yeah.
There was
yeah.
one that y'all were saying on the site. I didn't watch it, but it's for that remake or whatever.
Speak No Evil remake.
Yeah.
They show the whole movie excluding the final scene. They
That's
show the whole
nuts,
movie.
dude.
The whole movie.
That's insane.
There should be
There's
no
like-
indication of the climax in your
No,
fucking trailers.
yeah, what
That's
the fuck?
insane.
There's like major reveals in that trailer. It is fucking awful.
Also,
I know
I
it's
don't
hard
think
to
that movie
spell-
should exist anyway.
It shouldn't. It should not exist.
And then
Avoid
it's hard to
all
sell fucking
trailers.
movies. Yeah, I can't
That
watch
movie
trailers
came out like
anymore,
2
man.
years ago.
It did, yeah. Just go watch the movies. Avoid the trailers if you can, because goddamn, it's insane.
They make it
It's insane.
hard, dude. Last time I went to a movie theater in the fucking States, there's like 30 minutes of fucking. I think when we went to go see Poor Things, and I was like, when is this
Dude, yeah.
movie going
Oh,
to
it's so-
start?
You're not wrong, man. It's like oftentimes
Jesus
almost
Christ.
30 minutes. Yeah, you're not wrong. It's
Mhm.
There are no previews in Korean movies.
I used to
Zero.
love
There's no
watching
trailers.
previews, but they just show way too much now. I don't
mean,
recommend it. Yeah.
I think that they've always kind of had a problem with showing not too much, or showing too much, especially when it's a movie that's like not an existing property. The only time you get like a proper tease is when it's like, oh wait, that's the Spider-Man logo. Oh my god! Like,
To be fair, the first trailer they did for the first Omen was like hella vague and looked really cool.
yeah, I
Actually,
didn't watch that
So,
trailer, so
I'll give some
Trust
props
you
to
on
that one. Actually,
There you go.
I will put up literally anything so long as they stop doing slowed down pop songs. God damn it! It's
they'll
fucking
never
been like
stop.
20 years of this shit.
I come from a land down under.
Dude, fucking. Oh my god.
Turn 16 today.
That's the one we need. Dude, that would scare the
Oh my
shit
God.
out of me.
That's
I'd be like,
the-
this
Oh,
movie's
God.
I'm
about
terrified to know what
fuck.
movie that's attached to. I don't know if I'm ready for it.
Sweet 16.
Oh, Jesus Christ. It's the movie Happiness.
Looking
Anyway.
like a mama. A little more every day.
That's so fucked.
That should be the
She's
that should be
looking
the
a
fucking
lot
trailer
like
for 10 Cloverfield Lane.
she's looking a
Like
lot
some
like
shit
the
like that.
woman I bang.
Needs a fucking
Jesus.
Hannibal Lecter teeth suck sound
Who-
there.
Why would you write those lyrics?
But
They're so-
younger.
it's
I don't like it. I
don't
don't
like it
like
either.
it.
But hey,
I
call
don't
in,
like
leave a voicemail 904-638-3231. Let us know what are your favorites of the year. What are your least favorites of the year? What do you see? New releases. Call in. Let us know. Speaking of new releases next week, hopefully we're going to be talking about Abigail, assuming that Juice can watch it in Korea. If not, we'll be pivoting to just another you pick. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We got options.
Yeah. So yeah, call in, let us know, watch Abigail, get ready for next week's show. And until then, we're on social media everywhere. Just you can find us at Straight Chilling Podcast, literally everywhere. If you want to join our Slack channel conversation, just hit us up on one of our social media outlets, and I'll send you a link so you can do so. And until next week, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.